It really is true. And welcome to another edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForrest. The presentation brought to you by Greenlight Ventures and Bet Online. It really is true. After watching 9 weeks of NFL football, there is nothing as pleasurable as watching Jerry Jones writhing in agony, flailing away, making excuses, and all of the shots in the booth of him making those faces that Bryant Gumbel used to make on HBO Real Sports when some guy was just trying to BS him right through the wall, and he would give him that weird face, and you're thinking, how is this guy not immediately just bursting into laughter looking at that face? But Jones is exhibiting those same kind of characteristics as Gumbel did in those many, many interviews, especially the one he did with David Sampson, who at the time was one of the owners or president of the then Florida Marlins. And they had done a fleece job on the city, hoodwinked them into giving them just about every advantage that you could possibly have with public funding for a stadium. Gumbel's questioning the guy, and he's making those faces. And you could just morph those ugly faces into what Jerry Jones is doing, as he's almost a contortionist as he's answering these questions about the 3-5 Dallas Cowboys. And I'm getting as much pleasure out of that, and I said this yesterday, as much pleasure out of that as I did when Debbie Does Dallas came out, and I was right at the height of breaking through puberty. And do you break through that? I guess you do, but you get the picture. Very, very gratifying. That's been the most satisfying thing so far. 9 weeks of the National Football League. We did come up with a winner last night. The Kansas City Chiefs been eking out these victories. They lay 9 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a team that has shown many different times throughout the course of the season signs of genuine life. The resurrection of the career of Baker Mayfield is a heartening story. You don't see him on as many commercials, but you see him doing some decent things on the field. And it certainly has given rise to hopes that maybe Tampa Bay can do something of some significance this year. But up against it on the road against the Kansas City Chiefs on a Monday Night Football game, and they weren't able to get over the top. Always a big debate. I don't know how you feel about this, people. I guess it didn't matter. The spread, the outcome was decided once Tampa Bay got that late touchdown. They were already within the parameters of covering the point spread, getting the 9 points from Kansas City. So does Todd Bowles go for 2 there? After the fact, everybody's like, oh, well, he should have gone for 2. And you know how we feel about the cockamamie rule that the NFL employs in overtime. And I believe this. And I mean, check around. If you mention this to some of your friends, hey, you know what they ought to do? They ought to just continue the game from the point in which it was left off. If a team scores a game-tying touchdown and gets the extra point as time is expiring, well, then guess what? They would be in a position to kick off. They kick off, and we start the game all over again. And you don't necessarily need to have any kind of a rule in place about it. And this is where it gets hairy. Regular season, Kansas City marches down, gets a touchdown, ball game over. The other team, in this case, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, never gets its hands on the football. In the postseason, they would have had a chance, at least one try at a drive, knowing that they would have had to match the touchdown. Now they have a little bit of an edge in that they know that they have to go for all 4th downs. So the inequities that are created by this reluctance to just do the right thing, and that is pick up the game where it left off. And don't restart it. Don't have everything contingent on a coin flip, which ended up being to the demise of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They never had a chance to answer back in overtime. Now, if you were betting these games, and we did give you a bogus basketball game, but I don't feel too badly about that because if you look at the results of the NBA, maybe we're putting our feet into the fire a little too soon. We're going to talk to Scotty M. He's pretty adept at handicapping NBA games with his team, so we'll see how he feels about the early season action. There have been a few things of interest, but last night would have destroyed almost every pattern that you were looking at, with the exception of one. If you are betting these games, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch and bet the games as they're happening. With the largest selection of odds that you can possibly be given on everything from football, NBA, NHL, to even as we face election day today, entertainment and political props. Head to BetOnline today to get in on all the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. Yeah, very strange night of action in the NBA last night. We gave out as one of our picks. Philadelphia had been getting buried. They did get Paul George back, although he didn't do too much in the ball game. It was not like he was a significant factor. And so he gets out there on the floor finally for the Philadelphia 76ers, who had been 1-4 against the spread prior to last night. Phoenix playing great basketball. We figure, all right, 6 is a lot to lay in an NBA situation. There were some blowouts last night, but we go ahead and do it. And this is what's great about being a degenerate as we welcome Scotty M into the show. Scotty, how are you, my friend? Good to have you on the program.
Hey, Defo, how's it going? Happy Election Day to you today.
Yeah, I got to run right across. I don't even have to cross the street. I go right through a little gate over here, straight into the voting place. There's never anybody there where I'm living now, Lauderdale by the Sea. There'll be like 2 old people out there going, "Would you like to come in and vote, son?" And that's it. I'm going to get it done. And I'm telling people because of the promise that was made by the Trumpster that wait till tomorrow to buy gas, to buy groceries.
Oh,
And
yeah. Well,
you know what? I mean, I'd imagine illegal immigrants will be lining up at the border, ready to go back to whatever country they came from. They're not even going to want to subject themselves to guys coming in with, nightsticks and capping them over the knee there like they were some deadbeat facing a bookie. They're not even going to wait for that because it'll all change tomorrow if the Trumpster wins. That's one good thing if that happens. Otherwise, I'm on the other side of it. I don't know where you stand on this, but always dangerous to tread into politics in any other forum, but like CNN or one of these other Fox News or one of those other formats. All right. Yeah, I mean, weird last night results in the NBA. Were you following any NBA action last night?
I actually had a great game last night. My only game I put out in the NBA, I went with the Celtics. Thought they'd win that game easily. I,
Yes.
I laid the 10 points with the Boston, and they blew out Atlanta. Just too much firepower there for the Celtics. When they're ready and they're right, they're better than anybody in the league at this point in time. I mean, if you look what's going on, OKC undefeated. Cleveland continues their winning ways. Eked out that win last night against Milwaukee by I think 1 or 2.
2 points. That had to be a win, no cover, though. They were 7-0 against the spread with their 7 straight victories.
Right.
I can't imagine that they weren't laying at least 2 points to the Milwaukee Bucks, who have been horrible so far this year.
7.5 to be exact was the line on that game last night.
Wow.
Yeah, Milwaukee hasn't been much. What are they, 1-5 at this point in time? That's
One
a
of
little,
five, yes.
and the team. Listen, like I said when I first said it, you got to watch what's going on the first couple of weeks or so, catch some momentum, see some teams. Right now it's all about the Celtics, OKC. There's a few teams you can really focus in on, but other than that, the other teams are kind of up and down at this point. So you're not really catching a gauge as far as having an edge with them. So I want to watch it a little more closer. I'm picking my spots with the NBA. I love college basketball. That kicked off with a 50-game slate last night. Actually had a nice win to start the season. I look for smaller type teams that I think have an edge. I took Wichita State +1 last night. They beat Western Kentucky, pretty much handled that game throughout, and they ended up winning the game outright by 6. But guys, especially when you're putting your money down, you got a long season ahead of you. NBA is 82 games. Yeah, they're into the first 8 or so of them. I think when the first 20 games or 15, 20 games go, you can get a little more gauge, see a little more consistency, who's playing right, who's not playing right. And, even though they will change, listen, every team's going to go through their ups and downs through a long season. But I'm just focusing in on certain teams at this point in time, and that's really where I'm making my better decisions.
Scotty and I are both in the state of Florida, where there's an amendment about marijuana, legalizing marijuana, or I guess it's legalizing it more so than decriminalizing it, and it's going to be available like it is. It's already available to medical marijuana people. Of course, my glaucoma was acting up, so I had to get a card right away, and I enjoy this because it's a lot easier than dealing with the circumstances of the past where you were trying to do something in a parking lot of some sports bar, and there happened to be a cop rolling by, and he waved to you, and you're like, "No, we're not doing anything illegal here." So hopefully that will go away. But I have to think, Scotty M, and you can relate to this. I have to think that the Miami Heat are going to come out, if they haven't already, today with a huge endorsement for Amendment 3. Because the only explanation for what happens to that team at halftime, where they are last in the league in third quarter scoring and got smoked last night by the Sacramento Kings at home in the third quarter, 37-17. If there's one trend that's like kind of bizarre coming out, you would think Eric Spoelstra, regarded by many as the best coach in the NBA right now, and maybe He was ranked among the top all time, Spolstra. We've
Yeah,
seen him work miracles with a bunch of bums.
yeah.
Get the most out of players, know exactly what to do. He's always outfoxing the other coach. You always think you have the advantage with this guy. What's he doing with that fucking grease board at halftime, Scotty M? Are the Heat not just smoking massive amounts of weed? We know it's the NBA, so they would be advocates anyway. But what explanation could there be for having the sharpest coach in the league, maybe one of the best of all time, and falling flat on your face? Like, I mean, as flat as a Parisian runway model, flat on her face when they come out in the third quarter. Somewhat inexplicable, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, the NBA is it's a very strange league because I'll tell you, 20-point leads in the NBA can go away very quickly. If you noticed, I mean, a lot of big comebacks, in the NBA over the last year or so. It just seems like it's getting more and more like that. I mean, there's no safe lead, as crazy as it sounds, unless you're up 35 or 40 late, in the fourth quarter or something like that. But if you go to halftime, even with a 20-point lead, I mean, there's no guarantee you're going to come out in the second half. You might think that you got that game locked up. You just go a little looser or something. Maybe they just go into the locker room feeling good about themselves, and they feel like the second half they're going to just take that game and run away with it, and they play a little looser, and it gives the other team a chance to build some momentum. They get on a quick start, and they keep that momentum going for the rest of those 24 minutes in the second half of the game.
You don't think they walk out the back door there, and Alonzo has like a cigar box full of blunts,
There you go.
and they're all just getting wasted outside while they look at the moon over Biscayne Bay and come back in there and try to put together. Yeah, because the game ended up a 1-point loss to the Sacramento Kings, so it wasn't like they disappeared altogether. But that's been a very strange and somewhat alarming pattern with the Miami Heat so far this season. One of the few things that we've been able to so far detect, and you would imagine that will be rectified. But yeah, it was a weird group of results there. And do you believe? Are you of the belief, like a lot of people, Scotty M? You mentioned you're scoring with Wichita State, which I would have known nothing about Wichita State coming into the season. This is what you do for a living, so you're studying all of these things. But do you believe, and a lot of people subscribe to this theory, that if you are a basketball fan and a basketball bettor, that you have a much better shot handicapping college games than you do professional games?
1,000% Defo. I've noticed it since day one. College basketball, you can really get really locked in. Again, with these professionals, it's a whole different world. College kids, matchups, things like that. I like the game of college basketball much better to focus on than the NBA because you never know what the NBA brings from night to night. To be honest, I think the college game is a little more, you know, down the path of being more consistent. And I think if you can gauge certain teams in college basketball, again, you can't follow all these teams. There's too many of them. There's over 100 and some odd teams, really, if you think about it. On a Saturday, you could have 70 games in college basketball. Obviously, the NBA, you got 30 teams. The bottom line is there's only 15 max in one day. But in the college, you got so many games. You got to really focus on a certain handful of teams and kind of follow those teams, how they progress throughout the season. I look to watch for numbers. The whole key to me is numbers on games. I look at the matchups. I look at everything around the game. Then I look at that number and I say, damn, does this number make sense to me? Why is this team, whatever the case may be, -1? I think they should be plus, 5. I look to take advantage of the numbers. Everyone else could talk about everything else. At the end of the day, they're putting that number up to try to make that game bettable either way. The casinos just want to put a fair number up that people will go have action going either direction. That's how they make their money. So I look to beat that number. And yes, to answer your question, I like college basketball a lot more. I think it's a lot easier a game to try to win on than the NBA is, no doubt about that.
Well, look at the circumstance I was victimized by last night, wherein I love this about being a degenerate. I started to say at the top of the show before you came on that, what's great about being a bettor is you're rooting for a team, and then there comes a circumstance where you have to root against them doing something good.
Yep.
In other words, and the last thing you needed, if you were backing Phoenix laying 6 points last night in their game against the 76ers, was Durant to hit a fucking shot at the buzzer to give them a 2-point victory, which buries you. You're praying it goes to overtime, and somehow at that point, Phoenix finds its stride offensively. They've been blowing people out by nice margins in the early portion of the season, looking like they're really gelling together with Booker and Beal and Kevin Durant and enough of a supporting cast to get them through. But now you need that game to go to overtime. So you're praying that Durant misses that shot. And it's almost like you're familiar with this. A lot of people around the country didn't have the pleasure of partaking in betting on highlight, where you would be rooting for your team in the first round and then rooting against them in the next one. It's like, hey, fuck you, Joey, drop it. But yeah, it's interesting how you have to turn on your own team sometimes while in the course of trying to grind out a bet. But yeah, I was looking at that. Cleveland doesn't cover for the first time this year. Detroit clobbers the Los Angeles Lakers, who were showing signs of life. Anthony Davis left that game a little bit gimpy, so that's something to watch. But he was having a monster ball game before that. That was in the fourth quarter. You had Brooklyn winning a ball game. I've been reading a little bit about the Nets, and even though they're supposed to be bottom dwellers, they seem to be expressing, I guess this is common, some kind of optimism that, oh, yeah, well, I think we have the nucleus of something good here. So they showed that last night. The Sacramento-Miami game was great. Houston beats the New York Knicks. Really a wild bag of results. And then on the college scene, you were laying big points in that ball game, laying 10 points in the Celtics game. But college scene, you can lay a bucket of points, right? St. John's.
Oh, yeah.
Blast Fordham. They're not afraid to lay it on them. I mean, even our man Jim Larinaga crushes Fairleigh Dickinson, which you figure would be, just some kind of chum for the beginning of the regular season. But 113-72. So the big time programs are not afraid to embarrass those lesser lights that they pay. And then you get to my Syracuse Orange, barely eking out a victory over what I thought was like a reform school, Lemoyne. I don't know. It was a college of little distinction just outside of town there in Syracuse, and they would routinely schedule them as the first game on the basketball slate, and they almost lost to this team. So I don't know what that says for the future there.
That happens with these teams. It's. I guess sometimes what they do is they overprice the value of certain teams early in the season. Obviously, the powerhouse teams against the smaller type teams. But there is a lot of value on some of those games that actually give you a big advantage because these teams want to come out of the gates with momentum, obviously, because that's how they can build up their first 5, 6, 7, 8 wins before they go into conference play. Because once they go into conference play, it gets a lot more physical. The game gets a little different. And they want to build up those wins early. So these bigger teams, if they have the chance, they want to come out smoking hot so they get some momentum and they can start riding that 5, 6, 7 game, good solid record, 8-game record going in before they start, like I said, going into conference play, which gets a lot more difficult when you start playing against opponents, in your division throughout the season. So it's always good to get out to the good start. And if they can push it and they can pump up the points, yeah, they want to blow them out by as many as they can.
Yeah, I want to win the first race every time I go to the track.
Yeah.
Tough playing from behind, too, especially when your ATM card is no longer functioning. And instead of saying your transaction is approved, you get like 3 skull and crossbones across the screen there.
By the way, how did you make out with the Breeders' Cup races? How did that turn?
I didn't get a chance to do much with it. I did pick one winner on a handicapping show I was on, only based on the name of a song. I like the jazz tune Straight No Chaser. I think I saw Thelonious Monk play that in concert one time, so it's always been in my head. So I thought, okay, if I was going to plunge on just a hunch play, it would be Straight No Chaser. Came in, paid 14 and change. Nice. Had a couple of horses from an expert handicapper that I have great respect for, but they ran second and third, respectively. And Torpedo Anna was nice seeing that horse win, but there's no way you're doing anything with it at 3-5. A couple of friends of mine did well, though. They went out there and they managed to make a score on a couple of things as they were leaving, which is also, short of winning the first race that you bet, Scotty M, and I've seen you at the track many times, Is there nothing better? I guess now with lingering simulcasting, you could be betting Northfield and the Jugheads till midnight. But back in the day, when you hit the last race, you were walking out of there and it was party time. You were going straight from Gulfstream to Monero's, and drinks are on me. So you walked out with the money. All right, let's make some money for the people out there, Scotty M. Last week, nothing great. Across the board, we didn't do anything spectacular. I mentioned yesterday on the show. Collectively, we went 6-9. We only had one guy come up with a winning ledger, and that was Mike Jones. Went 2-1. He went down with that Philadelphia game. I don't know if you were on that one also. 22-0 control, complete control of everything that was happening. You can't imagine that you were going to lose to the point spread, laying 7 on a hook, and sure enough, the Jacksonville Jaguars came back from the dead, almost pulled the game out in the end.
Yep.
And you would, that was one of those things that comes across on the crawl, and you haven't seen the score yet, and you're thinking, okay, when are they going to put up my winner? And it's Axel Freed time, right, where they don't pay off at halftime, Axel, and you end up losing the bet. But that was a tough beat.
I thought I was going 4-0 for you last week. I had the only two games I lost: Philadelphia, which had a huge lead, and I lost that Virginia Tech game in overtime to
Oh
Syracuse,
yeah,
21-3. Other than I thought those two were going to get the job done, and the other two I liked. They both worked out with Detroit, and I had Washington against USC. I told you I thought that line was a mistake,
yeah.
and won. So yeah, 2-2, unfortunately. But I got some nice games going this week. I looked. I've been doing my homework. I looked at some numbers here, and I see two college games in particular that I feel very comfortable with. If you're ready for me to go,
Yeah. Fire away. I got my pen. I had to dig this up because we want to make notes of these things. So here's Scotty M and his selections this week. First on the college ranks in football.
well, the SEC is going to dominate this week with the matchups again. It didn't last week because they were a lot of them were on a little break for a week, bye week. But here we go. I'm going right into this huge matchup. You got Georgia versus Ole Miss. Let me tell you something. This is going to be an outstanding game, but I think we got the wrong team favored in this spot. Georgia is currently a 2.5-point favorite. The second highest yards per on offense per game, 569, is this Ole Miss. They're averaging 42 points a game. This team is serious. They didn't look ahead last week. They absolutely blew out Arkansas by over 30 points. This team getting points at home, as good as Georgia is, don't get me wrong. I think Ole Miss is a live dog in this game. I would buy this line up to 3.5 points. You're giving a team that's on offense 570 yards a game, scoring 42 points a game. I think that this locomotive is on the tracks to keep going, and I like them as a live dog. I'm taking Ole Miss in this spot to beat Georgia, but I would move the line to plus 3.5, even if the game comes down to a couple of point game. But I think Ole Miss got a shot to win the game outright. Like Ole Miss big time.
All right, very explosive early in the season, then kind of hit a wall there and seemed to get exposed as they went against better competition, but bounced back last week. A lot of people, in fact, we had handicappers that were on Arkansas. I believe the professor was, and they shellacked them. I mean, just unbelievable
Yeah,
job by Ole Miss offensively. All right, so you have Ole Miss over Georgia,
and I wasn't
getting
impressed
three
with
and a hook.
I wasn't impressed with Georgia's win against the Gators, to be honest, either. I thought they were kind of timid throughout the game. They got a little break, in the fourth quarter to pull away, but that game was close. That game could have went either way, also. So I think Ole Miss, the way they're playing right now, they're going to be a tough out for Georgia. Another game I really like is on the West Coast, and this team is just playing dynamite, quietly winning every game, which is BYU. They are 8-0. They're playing against a Utah team that's lost 4 straight games in a row. The wheels fell off the bus somewhere with this Utah team. They're just not playing right now. I just like the way BYU goes on the road. They get the job done. They're 4-0 on the road. They're 4-0 at home. They're finding ways to win, which I love. They're just playing on that cusp where they're continuing, it seems, to play real solid and get better type of football, where the other team is up and down at best at this point. I like BYU to continue their winning ways and go to 9-0. The line on this game is 4. I'm going down to 3 with it. I would buy that line down to -3 on the road just because it's on the road. I still like the way BYU's playing. I think they have the edge on both sides of the ball, and I don't like the way I see this Utah team playing, so they're going to have to come with their A-plus game in order to beat this team. So I like BYU in this matchup to get the job done. I think they win this game by anywhere from 7 to 12 points.
All right, very good. Taking BYU over Utah. So we have Ole Miss in the matchup with Georgia, BYU over Utah. What else are you looking at, Scotty M?
I'm just going to jump to the pros. I think those are the only two games that I thought had, any made sense to me as best bets. So I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to jump into the NFL where I got two huge plays I'm looking at. I like the Steelers this week against Washington. I think that defense is going to cause fits. Listen, this Jaden Daniels has been incredible. The guy's had a great start to the season, 9 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. Since Russell Wilson has taken over the reign with the Steelers, they obviously got a nice lift there. They're 6-2 for the season. They're 2-0 with him running the show. But this defense of the Steelers is A-plus. And I don't think Jaden Daniels has faced a defense like this other than when he played against Baltimore. But Baltimore doesn't have the defense that the Steelers has. I like the Steelers as a live dog. I got to be honest with you. They're 3-1 on the road. They're playing much better, like I said, with Russell Wilson. They're finding ways to score points. I think this game is going to be about the defense causing mistakes for Washington, and those mistakes are going to come back to haunt them. So I'm going to take the Steelers as a dog. I'd move that line up to +3 or 3.5. It's currently sitting 2.5, 3. But I make sure you get +3 or 3.5 with the Steelers. I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers go in there and beat them. I think this is the type of game that the momentum is carrying right now for the Steelers. Washington's playing well. They played well against the Giants. They won 27-22. But I just think they're going to run into a buzzsaw, and those schemes that Pittsburgh coaches on the defense can put in front of this young rookie is going to be a big difference, and I think that might cause some mistakes. Take the Steelers plus the points.
Yeah, Daniels, I mean, they haven't been this confident in a quarterback since Sonny Jurgensen was taking a couple of shots of bourbon on the sidelines before he ran out there in the field and chucked a couple of touchdown passes. All right, and your final pick here on the show today, Scotty M.
Yeah, we got this Chargers-Tennessee game. I think the Chargers they're moving in the right direction right now. I like the way they're playing. Their offense showed up last week. Their defense has been phenomenal so far this year. They're playing against a weak Tennessee team. I mean, how can you compare Herbert to Mason Rudolph? There's no comparison. Herbert's playing. He's been playing error-free football. He's only had 10 touchdown passes, but only 1 interception the whole season, which is pretty damn good. He's keeping the ball. He's not giving it away like he does, sometimes forcing it. Mason Rudolph, I mean, he's got 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's going on the road against a team like this that seems to be building a little momentum, as you see recently. So Harbaugh's doing a nice job with this team. They're 5-3 right now. I just don't see how Tennessee can stay with this team. I just feel right now that the Chargers is absolutely the better of the two teams. I think they're much better, actually. So I would lay the line on this game right now is about 7.5 or 7 in different places. I would keep it under. I always do this on a game like this. I would make it 6.5. Bring that line down a full half a point or a point. Keep it at 6.5. I like the Chargers. I just think there's too much firepower there. Defensively, they're playing tremendous, and offensively, they're starting to kick in. So I don't see how the Tennessee can handle this team at all.
Ugly game Tennessee had. I mentioned this yesterday. A little recap we were doing on the NFL. A friend of mine, Ron Borges, used to write for the Boston Globe. He was a boxing guy, but he was annihilating the Patriots matchup against the Titans as one of the worst exhibitions of football he's ever seen. How can people get your information, Scotty M? You're always giving out good stuff, a lot of freebies, and all kinds of good advice for your clients.
Absolutely. All you have to do, guys, is check me out on social media or on TikTok. Just go to my official TikTok page. It's SM Picks, Picks. That's it. We put out free stuff. We've been hot. We've been hot. We're on a little heater right now. I think we've hit our last 4 straight free plays in a row, hitting over 61% for 5+ years on social media. So check it all out. We put out free stuff all the time. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can DM me. If you're a more serious player and you're looking for some private games that we put out exclusively on a limited basis, reach out to me, and we're here to win.
Good stuff as always, Scotty M. We appreciate it. Best of luck with your plays, and we'll talk to you again soon, my friend.
Defo, you're the man. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks a lot. Scotty M, ladies and gentlemen. All right, yeah, there you have it, as Gordon Soley, the great wrestling announcer, used to say to close out every broadcast. There you have it. We have Ole Miss over Georgia from Scotty M, BYU over Utah. That sounded like some pretty sound logic there. Steelers, Washington, tough to go against the hot kid, but Scotty M thinks the Steelers can do it. They consistently overachieve under Mike Tomlin, never had a losing season. And the Los Angeles Chargers, it seems like Harbaugh has straightened out Herbert and his penchant for making mistakes has somehow curbed those down. And even though maybe not as spectacular, still grinding out a lot of victories over a lousy Tennessee team. And now when you have to lay a little bit of a boatload of points there at 7 and a hook. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll join you again tomorrow. We'll have Troy West with us on the program. Troy's been winning consistently for us all year long, so we'll get some selections from him. And wow, I mean, it's the full smorgasbord of degeneracy. It couldn't be any better right now. It's like fucking Christmas for those of us that like to indulge in sports wagering, with everything going, including yesterday's sensational tip-off of college basketball. Have a great day, everybody. Get out there and vote. And tomorrow, like I said, hold off on buying groceries, gas, because Trump's going to fix it on day number one. At least that's what he says. So I'm thinking I'll go out tomorrow, fill up my tank at $1.40 a gallon. All right. See you next time. Thanks so much for tuning in to Bury Your Bookie.